So, good evening. It's Caroline Carrington from Jewel in the Lotus Coaching, coming to you live from Oakland. And some of you will be watching this video on Facebook Live. I'm going to take my glasses off because there's a reflection. And some of you will watch it later on YouTube or catch it in my newsletter. If you are not already on my newsletter, I strongly recommend signing up at carolinecarrington.com. I offer free tips and tools and videos to support you on your path. And I'd love to keep inspiring you to bring more love into the world and to bring more conscious connection. So thanks to everybody who's tuning in. I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my time this weekend at Dark Odyssey Surrender, a conference that was held in San Francisco. I was invited to share my dark pink puja, and it was a very interesting way to bridge the gaps between the kink world, spirituality, and sexuality. And it's actually one of my favorite conferences of the year. So welcome, Lisa. Welcome, Scott. Thanks for tuning in. So a number of you on my Facebook page were asking what kink is. And I was so busy this weekend, I didn't have time to reply. So I'm choosing to use this video to do just that. So kink is another word for BDSM. And some of the definitions of BDSM are bondage, domination, sadomasochism, which sounds really scary to some of you, I imagine. But really what it is about playing with energy, playing with sensation, playing with power dynamics, using both pleasure and pain as a means for connection and a means for a journey with someone else and a discovery of oneself. At least that's what it means for me. I'm sure if you asked 100 different people, they would give you a different definition. But one of the things that I love about this particular conference was the fact that they include spirituality in this practice. And many of you know me as a Tantra teacher, and you're wondering, how does a Tantra teacher get involved in kink? And the reality was that I discovered it long before I discovered Tantra. And for me, there are many ways to connect with spirit, and there are many ways for us to actually play with energy. Some of you will think of playing with energy in terms of Kundalini, which is a really fun way to play with energy. But, you know, giving somebody a consensual, delicious spanking certainly puts a lot of energy into the body and is going to raise people's pleasure potential if they're into that. So, yeah, it was actually exquisitely timed that I was at this conference. I've been pretty deeply affected by the election, as I know the election in the US, as I know many of you have been as well. And I found myself breaking down in tears on Friday morning. I actually arrived a little later to the conference than I'd hoped, because I was just feeling despondent about a lot of the changes that are actually already starting to happen in the United States in terms of the president-elect. And I know that there are a lot of people that are feeling fearful and lacking hope. And I am part of the LGBT community. That stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans community. I myself identify as queer, and that means that I am open to embracing all people of a variety of sexualities, a variety of chosen genders and body types. And my politics in the world is really around love and around welcoming all people, regardless of their sexual orientation. I like to welcome all people of all kinds of persuasions and orientations. But So, you know, the LGBT community has been pretty deeply impacted already. Unfortunately, there have been a number of trans suicides. I haven't watched the statistics over the weekend because I was being present at the conference. But it was alarming that one day after the election results came out, 8 trans people committed suicide, feeling completely hopeless and unsupported in their self-expression, in who they are in the world. And while I don't pretend to be an expert on politics, I had my own feelings come up about how that was going to impact me and how that was going to impact my friends and my colleagues and my lovers and, you know, the community that I've created around my events. And what I wanted to share was, you know, despite being really upset before the conference, what was so exquisite was walking into the space. And at Dark Odyssey, they really celebrate radical self-expression. And their people were celebrating sexuality in all of its forms. They were celebrating, you know, genders, the delicious spectrum of genders that people choose to dance and explore in. And it really created a tapestry and a space where people could come together and be their authentic selves. And that gave me so much hope. It gave me an incredible amount of hope to be gathered in a place where, despite what's happening in the news right now, and especially in the media, creating a lot of fear, there are still people coming together, celebrating pleasure, celebrating love, celebrating self-expression. And that really reminded me of the importance of us coming together in community to do this. I want to back up just a moment because as I was posting about Dark Odyssey, some of you were asking, I posted something on Facebook, and I'm going to have to paraphrase, but it said something about kink is an exquisite experience of meditation that brings us, you know, so perfectly into the present. And somebody was asking, you know, how does it do that? Well, I'm going to give you a very personal example from a class that I attended. And the class was, and once again, this is all consensual. There's a difference between BDSM or kink and violence, and I don't condone violence at all. But I was there with a lover, and we were attending a class on face slapping and hair pulling. And, you know, as we were in the practical parts of the class, it's really interesting when the sensation of pain hits your body because, you know, as I'd feel the sensation on my face, as I'd feel the neurotransmitters and the nerve endings, I'm feeling them now as I'm doing it again, reacting in my face, it was really powerful because my attention was exquisitely and perfectly in that moment. I'm so delighted that a couple of you, thank you Isabella, that were there this weekend are tuning in. And what was incredible was that in that moment, as I gazed into my lover's eyes, and he was doing something that I'd requested of him to do, you know, in slapping me, and as he pulled my hair, which took me into a deeply meditative space and state that some people may refer to as subspace, very similar to meditation for me, certainly an altered state. I honestly wasn't thinking about politics. I wasn't thinking about how afraid I'd been that morning about the state of this country. I was exquisitely being in my body and being with him and dropping into his eyes and having our hearts connected. And so that's what I meant by this being a meditation. Because for me, one of the definitions of meditation is anything that brings you into this present moment. And even though I know this, it's fear when we're thinking about the future that actually takes us out of the present. So it was a wonderful way to dive back in. And thank you, Scott, for posting so much. You know, I'm not saying to anybody that you have to choose BDSM as the path. You may find other ways to play with energy. I'm geeky about energy, so I play with it in many forms. I chant mantras, which comes from, you know, an Indian tradition, from the Hindu tradition. I play with energy in Tantra in terms of raising Kundalini and raising vibration. I work with chakras, but sensation or impact play is another way to play with energy. Or using rope bondage, for example, is another way for energy to be translated and transmitted into the body. So for those of you that are like, wow, this is really far out for a Tantra teacher, I want to remind you all that Tantrikas are pretty radical. You know, there's sort of a new agey movement that all just wants to focus on the light. And I love focusing on light. A big part of my mission in the world is to help hold the light and remind us to come back to it. I'm actually loving in this video, the light is casting on this side of my face. But the shadow is equally as important. And being able to embrace our shadow is just as important. So as Tantrikas, we're actually not politically, we are not generally, specifically politically correct. And we are rebels, and we break the rules, and we play on the edges. As one of my co-teachers, Charlie Glickman, said, edge play says, edge play is where you find it. It's often where you really get to discover who you are. And those edges are going to look different for different people. But finding where your own edge is and allowing yourself to expand is really going to make a difference. So I really noticed for me how important it was this weekend to be in community with other like-minded people, that despite the climate out there, and, you know, there have been protests in Oakland, there's been rioting, there's been looting, you know, and it's made me very worried. I completely support protesting, by the way, but it's made me quite concerned, you know, about the state of violence that can erupt in this country. And as I said, what I know how to do is to hold the light and to invite people to come back into their hearts and to come back into connection with each other. And so what I decided to do, and I did this on Friday morning before I went to the conference, was that I actually added another puja in for the year. Now, normally I take December off. I'm working very hard, normally focusing on my private students, but I don't normally teach public classes. And I decided to add another puja in. I'm calling it my Hot Pink Holiday Puja. And I've added that in because I really believe that it's vitally important for us to come together during this, what feels like a very dark time to so many of us, to come together in places and spaces where we are celebrated, where we are honored, where we're adored, where there's lots of love, where you're welcomed, and where there's the opportunity to experience pleasure and receive touch. So many of us need radical self-care right now, just to help us cope with the reality of what's going on in the world. And at all of my events, I am passionately committed to being as inclusive as I possibly can. I'm still human, and I love that term, Isabella, endarkment. Thank you. Welcome, Kiva. But so I'm really passionate about being inclusive. And for me, what that means is that people of all races are welcome at my events. People of all genders. I don't actually believe that there's just a gender binary of masculine and feminine. There are a range of different genders, and I welcome all sorts of people from all sorts of walks of life to come and celebrate their chosen gender with us and with me. I want a range of ethnicities present. You know, I'm an immigrant, for example. I wasn't born in America. Many of you can hear my super sexy accent. And so I want people from all over the world welcome at my events. I also don't discriminate against people based on relationship, style, or structure. And what that means is I welcome individual people. You don't need to have a partner to attend my events. I actually can't think of an event right now you'd need a partner for, because I'm that committed to making it inclusive, because I actually believe it's a form of discrimination to have to say to people you have to have a partner or to bring your own gender balance. Thank you, Kiva, for agreeing with my sexy accent comment. But I've seen it in other communities where predominantly single men are excluded from events unless they can bring a partner, and that doesn't work for me. And I actually make a lot of extra work for myself to make sure that no one has to bring a partner. I want to create environments where you can come and meet amazing and incredible people at my events. And while there's no obligation to date afterwards, you can certainly meet like-minded people. As this country may be clamping down on freedom of expression around sexuality, as well as being a Tantra teacher, I'm a sex educator as well. It's really important for me to empower you all with skills to have more sexual freedom, to have permission to be your beautiful, delicious, pleasure-filled selves, and to not apologize for that. So to create environments where you're welcome to come and explore. And, in my pujas, we explore new pathways of intimacy and connection. We explore breath and eye gazing and mantra, and I teach you delicious ways to, I love that word, clearly, I'm using it a lot today, but delicious ways to explore conscious touch, actually as a means of meditation. We play with energy in all of its forms. And I get asked this question a lot, so I'm going to put it in the video, but you keep your clothes on. I want to show you how much fun you can have and keep your clothes on at the pujas. So, and there's no genital touching allowed, because I actually teach plenty of classes where genitals are front and center stage, and we learn advanced techniques on how to pleasure genitals. But for the pujas, it's really important in this ritual that we change the superhighways. We change the ways or the defaults that we have around connection and around kind of rushing to a goal-oriented means of sharing pleasure. And instead, learn to really dive into our hearts, to really connect, to really sustain intimacy. And so at these pujas, I really welcome people of all races, of all ethnic backgrounds, of all sexual persuasions, of all relationship structures. So you may be single. Many people don't know this, but I am single. I have some lovers, many of whom live in other parts of the country. I'm actually not in a relationship, and I sometimes think the universe is having a nice laugh with me about that. But to really be templating and demonstrating for you that you can practice Tantra while being a single person, that you don't need a partner to be able to practice. And you're completely welcome if you're coming as a couple, or if you're coming as a triad. Poly people are certainly welcome. Many poly people that come to my events. By poly, I'm referring to the branch, talking a lot about different parts of our sexuality in this video, but polyamory, meaning we can be in love with or in connection with emotionally or physically with many different people. And of course, monogamous people are completely welcome too. So there's a broad spectrum. And I've been really blessed that people that have disabilities have been showing up recently. I had a blind person join our community, and recently somebody that's hearing impaired. And it's such a gift that, we just find ways to work around so that it's not an impediment. And yes, Craig, I have a big heart for the singles. So for the singles, please support me in signing up early for my events so that I can be sure to accommodate you. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes. If any of you have questions about anything I've shared, hi Thea, thanks for tuning in. But this really is my social activism in the world. Tantra and the things that I share, both in my private sessions, but really in my classes. Honestly, what I charge for my classes is basically giving them away for the amount of work that goes into them. I offer discounts for all of you that sign up early because I want to make this as available as possible so that we all have an opportunity to go and bask in love. We all deserve to be loved and touched and celebrated and honored and adored. And I think it's more important now than ever to be dropping into community and finding places where we can keep celebrating our self-expression despite what the news is telling us, despite what the president-elect seems to stand for. And perhaps he'll surprise us. That would be a wonderful surprise. So I'm going to keep being a stand for love. I'm going to keep holding the light with the mantras. I am going to keep creating delicious environments for us to all dive into our hearts and reconnect in love. And I know when the results about Ferguson were released, I was actually leading puja in Oakland, and just a few miles down the road, there were people protesting and violence was breaking out. And it made my heart really happy to know that across racial divides, because that night there were people of all races at my puja, across racial divides, we were melting into our hearts, and across the boundaries of the stories about the ways we can connect. We had people of all sorts of genders connecting and having new experiences and breaking down the barriers to love. So my choice in these challenging times is to keep choosing love, to keep choosing ways where we can each celebrate each other. I know that I'm taking time with my son, for example, to talk to him about the importance of being kind to his classmates, 3 of whom he recently revealed to me are Muslim. And I said, let's just be a little more gentle with each other in these challenging times. While I'm certainly teaching Tantra that comes from the Hindu religion, I'm not prescribing anything to anybody. I have people of all sorts of religions that come. I'm really here to celebrate you as an exquisite expression of the divine, you as a vibrant sexual being, you as a beautiful, empowered, or perhaps challenged, exquisite expression of who you choose to be in the world. So I'm taking time each day, be it with the cashier at my local grocery store, or at the lady who's booking me in for, my waxing appointment. I'm slowing down a little, and I'm taking time to look in somebody's eyes and share a kind word and ask them how they are doing today. This is part of my social activism in the world. This is part of how I choose to be and choose love. Love trumps hate. And so I invite you to do whatever feels right to you. This is my invitation to join me December 19th in Oakland for my Hot Pink Holiday Puja. Discounted tickets went on sale this weekend. A couple have been snapped up already. And if you're local, please come and join in the fun. I'm going to be offering this as a holiday ritual, an alternative to some of the other rituals that many of us partake in. The holidays can be a really challenging time for many people. You know, my family is pretty far away, or my family of origin is pretty far away in South Africa. And some of us are disconnected from our families, and some of us, because of our choices of self-expression, are not welcome during the holidays with our families. So I want this to be a safe space for you all to come and celebrate. And if going and spending time with your families on the holidays is hard, come and get loved up so that you are feeling even more confident and empowered to go and be with your families. I think it was Ram Dass who said, you know, if you think you're enlightened, go and spend some time with your family, and that'll really test that theory, because somehow they know how to push our buttons. Finally, I want to offer one other tidbit for you, and that is that between now and December 1st, as a way to really offer back to community more opportunities for deep healing and a place for your emotions to be processed, a place for your body and your heart to be held. Anybody booking a private Tantra session with me, my full Tantric Bliss session, by December 1st, can actually attend my Hot Pink Holiday Puja as my guest for free. So if you're interested in learning more about that, please contact me and I can send you some more information. Thank you for allowing me to share my heart with you today. I love that you guys all tuned in. Feel free to place any more questions you have in the comments below. I am going to sign off soon so that I can go and do my own self-care. I'm going to go and chant mantras and do some asana to love my own body tonight and to do my own meditation practice. But I'm going to drop some of the links in the video below for you, for those of you that are watching on Facebook, so that you can join us at the puja or find ways to come and dive even deeper in a private session with me. Beaming love out to you wherever you are in the world. I'm holding the candle that love wins no matter what. Thank you for being part of this global community of lovers and pleasure seekers. And yes, sorry. Thanks, David. You're asking for the address of the puja next week. This is actually an important point, in that when you sign up for my events, I often don't post the address, and I send that out just a few days before the event itself. So watch for that in your inbox. I send it out 2 or 3 days in advance, so you'll probably get it this weekend, and that applies to all of my events. Otherwise, I end up sending out 20 different reminders or 30 different reminders, depending on how big the class is, and you'll come back with the same questions. So I do it right before so that you don't lose the emails. So thank you again for tuning in. You guys are all such a blessing. You inspire me deeply. Thank you for allowing me to share my heart and my joy with you today. Offering deep pranams and namaste to you all. And I look forward to our next opportunity for connection.